The movie, anyway.
They all split up. And Sam and Frodo head towards Mordor.
Boromir heads over the waterfall.
Boromir heads over the waterfall, and
Merry and Pippin are going for a hike with the orcs.
Yeah, Merry and Pippin are getting dragged along on a family trip, and Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli decide to go and do some long distance marathon training.
Yeah.
So they go after the orcs to rescue Merry and Pippin.
Right.
Overall, the movie, I would say, is the best of the three.
I would agree.
I have gone back and forth between it and Two Towers. But
I would almost agree with that. I can't forgive the Ents.
I agree. I think that scene. Now you and I have different. We'll get into some. We have more arguments in Two Towers because the more things diverge from the book, that's when he and I start getting into some pretty rousing arguments.
Yeah.
But as far as Fellowship of the Ring, there are changes, but I don't think any of the changes are really detrimental, or too far out, or maybe were necessary. And it also, I don't know, it feels a little more complete. I don't know how to. I don't see any glaring things.
We haven't.
In the movie.
I think you said it best just a second or two ago. The further along we get, the more they diverge.
Right.
And at this stage, they haven't really diverged. I mean, yeah, there's differences, but the divergence hasn't
really gone
crazy yet.
Okay, so that takes us to the Two Towers. So, at the beginning, Sam and Frodo meet Gollum. They put in a little extra in the extended cut with the elven rope.
Yep.
And
they pulled that straight from the book, so not a problem there.
Not a problem there. And they're also what I liked was a little bit more time in the mountains and how arduous the journey was. You know, there's a point where they're just sitting in the rain. There's no shelter. It's kind of they're not having a good time.
Yeah.
You know, it's like my family vacations with my parents.
I have said this multiple times yesterday, and I'm going to say it again today for your audience. I highly recommend, and this goes for if you've watched the movies or if you've read the books or whatever, after you've experienced the story once or twice, pick up a book copy of The Return of the King and read The Tale of Years.
The Tale of Years.
The Tale of Years.
And that's basically a timeline.
Yeah.
It's basically this happened on this day, and then this year, and then this year.
It really helps you tie together in your mind who was doing what when.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when the fellowship's all together, it's easy. But when they split up, and you've got Frodo and Sam over here, and you've got Gandalf and Pippin over here, and you've got Merry hanging out with Theoden over here, and trying to keep track of what's going on at any given moment is hard. So if you read through the Tale of Years, like I said, it's a timeline. It's on March 31st. This happened. This happened. This happened. It's just a really nice aid to help you tie everything together in your mind.
Because there's nothing that's more enjoyable about reading a good adventure story like homework.
Well, it makes a reread, at least to me it did, much more enjoyable. Because,
I get it. I mean, we're geeks. I'm giving you shit. Like, we don't go into some really bizarre... Like, I've read the Star Trek technical manuals. I really got no room to talk.
I also like the Tale of Years because it continues the story.
Yeah, it tells where are they now?
Yeah, where are they now? All the way until they're all dead.
I really thought it was sad that Sam ended up in a trailer park. Felt bad for him. So Frodo and Sam meet.
Standing on the porch. Don't take him, I love him.
On the next episode of Cops, Pippin Took. Okay, so they meet Gollum.
They meet Gollum.
And this is when we're first introduced to Gollum. I would say I was kind of surprised at how Gollum's. This is where I thought the special effects with Gollum were really starting to show the scenes. But either I got more used to it, or as the movie went on and they got to different areas outside the rocks, and they got into darker areas, and then they got to Return of the King, it got better.
You said this yesterday when we were watching it, and I've thought about it, and I've come to the conclusion that you were probably absolutely 100% on the nose. I think the biggest problem they had was getting the lighting to match.
Yeah, it doesn't. There's times where the lighting doesn't match, and there was a couple of times where, because of smoke machines or whatever they're doing, there's some haze in front of the characters, and he looked too sharp. But they were correcting that as they went along.
Yeah.
So
it got better, definitely.
Yeah. This is 2002. I mean, this kind of thing was a very new idea, and I can't really fault. It still holds up for the most part. It's not jarring, and of course, Andy Serkis's performance is phenomenal.
Yeah. Do you remember his appearance at the
MTV movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, where he's arguing with Gollum.
And Peter Jackson, my precious, who do you think you are, you f***ing hack?
That's enough, Gollum.
Piss off, Circus, you stupid fat wuss f***ing turd.
And Gollum is like flipping everybody off.
That was great.
I do feel bad for him because he was condemned to be wearing a lycra suit covered in ping pong balls for the rest of his life. But I don't know. He seems to like it. I mean, he's done. What has he done? He's done the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
He's done. He was in Star Wars. He was Snoke.
Was he in Star Wars?
Did
he do Snoke? Okay.
He did Snoke. And I'm trying to think. I know he's done some other things, but I can't.
I haven't seen the new one. I saw the first of the new ones. I didn't bother to see them.
Well, and this is where I get really irritated with you. Now, when we first, this was when this first came out, we were in the middle of the prequels, right? So
yeah,
99 Phantom Menace, then 2001, 2002, 2003, Lord of the Rings, 2002 Attack of the Clones, 2005 Revenge of the Sith.
Okay.
So you're bitching at me about the Lord of the Rings, which is a pretty solid trilogy. As a movie, trilogy.
Yeah.
Solid. And even though we say we like the Fellowship the best, neither of the other two movies are.
If you just watch the Fellowship and don't watch the others, you haven't seen.
You haven't seen the whole thing, of course. But also, I don't think that the drop in quality or anything is it's not like it goes off a cliff. It's fine. It's just okay.
I'm going to say, I mean, you know this, that Tolkien himself had said that this was not a trilogy. It was one novel.
It was one novel, yeah.
That had to be printed in 3 books because printing it as one book was too expensive. Because the thicker a book gets, the more expensive it is to bind it.
And that's fair. And that's why I don't get too worked up about whether things that were in the Two Towers were moved to Return of the King. And
it's one story.
It's one story. So what does it matter? Especially if you watch it all in one sitting. Which, by the way, I'll never forgive you for.
I actually have a copy of the Red Book edition of The Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah.
The one is that one bound.
Oh my God.
It's like this tall. It looks like a fucking Oxford English Dictionary, in size, and it's red, fake leather.
You keep it by your bed just in case a prowler comes in. You can kill him.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so the point is that was pretty solid. I had my Star Wars trilogy, which I also think was pretty solid, although there is a lot of argument to be made that Return of the Jedi is a notable drop off in some of it. But then
I like Return of the Jedi.
I like it too. Don't get me wrong. I like it too. But there's a lot of having to give Han and Leia something to do. There isn't a lot of arc with them. But the Luke Skywalker arc is they stick the landing on that.
Yeah.
So I don't have a big problem with Return of the Jedi. It's just not at the level of Empire or the original Star Wars. But still, it's a solid trilogy. So we both have 2 solid trilogies, whereas I have the prequel trilogy. And that thing is a monstrosity. Still, I don't care what you say. And it's And you're bitching about like little nitpicks in Lord of the Rings. I'm like, shut the j.r.r. Binks, you motherfucker. Well, then The Hobbit comes out, so now we're kind of even.
Oh God.
Now you've got something to bitch about. Now you look at Lord of the Rings and you go, okay, well,
Aaron,
maybe
I have a
bad.
confession to make. I bought the extended edition version of the Hobbit movies, and I did not watch any of them until I had all three in hand, and I made him come down and watch them with me.
As I recall, I didn't come back for a while.
No, I don't think you spoke to me for.
It was a while. So then we had that damn trilogy. I think you got a cat trying.
Yes, I got a cat trying to come through the door.
A lot of wildlife around here. So, but then I am one up on you because I not only have the sequel trilogy, which is so bad. You know, I ought to make you watch that. That'll fix you for The Hobbit. And then, oh God, The Last Jedi.
I have a gun.
He does. So I'm not happy with you about The Hobbit, but the point is that you have a very solid trilogy in the Lord of the Rings.
Well, think of it this way: if The Hobbit was bad for you, what was it like for me?
It was like the sequel trilogy in Star Wars. And those of you who know what there's a bunch of people out there right now nodding. Yep. Mm-hmm. So we get to Two Towers. So let's get started on Two Towers.
Okay.
All right.
Two Towers.
Beginning of Two Towers is kind of a flashback, but more of an alternate version of events. Where
Refresh my memory. What?
You shall not pass.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's not
Gandalf's point of view of the Balrog.
It's Gandalf's point of view,
right.
or a
And he fights the
Gandalf
Balrog.
Gandalf cam view, if you will.
Yeah. Gandalf cam.
We get to see what happened to Gandalf. Put it that way.
And he goes and he fights the Balrog. The Balrog never turned into the slime rog or whatever they called him. The mud rog.
You didn't really see it. They
No.
fell into the water and his flames were quenched.
Yeah.
I didn't catch it. When did he burst into flame again? Was he on fire when they were running up the
He
stairs?
never stopped being on fire.
Okay,
They were up
so-
on the top of the mountaintop.
Because book verse, his flames were quenched when they hit the water, and he didn't burst into flame again until they came out into the sun at the top of the mountain.
But he killed him.
He killed him.
I think that's a phenomenal, fun scene. Great music.
But the mountain didn't break, damn it.
The mountain didn't break.
The mountain was supposed to break.
It didn't break.
It didn't break.
I got to hear about that while we're watching. What? The mountain didn't break! Not that you weren't good and sloshed. Your sneakers were squishy. So
I drank a little more yesterday than is my normal want, and that is saying something.
that is. So we get to that and the question is, did you tell me that this is not? I don't know if I would call it. You have to interpret it from the movie because you really don't know. But he dies.
He died.
And Jesus Christ's back.
Pretty much. And in the hardcore Tolkien fandom, it's kind of divided on this. Everybody pretty much agrees he died, but there's some argument about who it was that said, hey, you're not done yet, and sent him back. On one hand, there's people that say it was God, and on the other hand, there's people that say it was the Valar. Arguments can be made either way.
I mean, you're talking about God or the angels right below God,
right?
Brought him back to life. I'm unclear of why this argument matters.
Because there is some question as to how powerful Gandalf was when he came back. The ones that argue that it was God himself that sent him back say that the reason it had to be God is because he got a power up. He didn't just get a new body. He
didn't just level up. He leveled up beyond Saruman.
Yeah. So there are some that say only God could have done that. The Valar could have sent him back, but it would have just been, same.
Okay.
Whereas The ones that think that he got a little bit of a power boost feel like the only way that could have happened would have been if God himself had said, "Hey."
Well, I mean, if the Valar, did the Valar make all of them originally? Gandalf, Saruman, whatever.
The way I understand it, this is in the Silmarillion, and as I told you before, the Silmarillion is very much like reading
It's homework.
the Bible. It's in the beginning, there was Eru the One with God, and he created the Valar,
Okay.
and then he taught them to sing, and they sang, and it's the most boring shit you will ever read. Okay.
And this is a Tolkien fanatic.
They sang, and basically the Middle Earth was created from this song.
All right.
And Melkor was a discord in the song. He wasn't following Eru's tune. He was trying to make his own music, and it was a discord. But in the end, when you looked at the final, you see that even the discord had its place.
Yeah, good and evil, the balance,
Yeah.
I suppose. Yeah, okay.
But
Free will and all that.
I want to say that everybody below the rank of the Valar was sang into existence
By the Valar.
By the Valar. I could be wrong there. It's been I've only ever read Silmarillion once.
So those of you who are more knowledgeable about this than my supposed expert here,
Yeah,
maybe you
well-
could put something in the comments down below. We'd really appreciate it.
I've only ever read the Silmarillion that one time because it is a slog.
Yeah. That's
And-
what I've heard.
And that was a long time ago, so my memory of details on that could be a little hazy.
Okay, fair enough. So the question is Gandalf done by God or is he done by the...
But either way, it's generally agreed upon
This
that
is
he
what you-
did die.
This is what you guys argue about.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's generally agreed that he did die. He didn't just get, a body swap, that he actually literally died, which is not supposed to be able to happen to someone of his pay grade.
So but he was fighting somebody equal to him. So
Equal to
speak.
his pay grade. Yeah, they were.
So if he was able to kill the Balrog, it's not
Yeah.
it makes sense that the Balrog might have been able to kill him
Yeah.
too. So they killed each other in essence. He comes back as Gandalf the White.
Gandalf the White.
All right. So in the movie, okay, so we get through that. We've met Frodo and Sam have done their thing with they've met Gollum, and they've made Gollum swear in the ring.
What? Actually, they didn't. I don't think they made him swear on the ring. He did.
I swear. He did. He says, "There's no oath that you can give that I could trust." And he says, "I swear on the precious,
Exactly.
I will help you."
It wasn't Frodo's idea that he swear on the ring. That was Gollum's
Okay,
idea.
fair enough. But he did swear
But
in the
he
ring,
did swear on the ring.
and so they're heading out. Then you go back to Merry and Pippin, who are hanging off the back of all the orcs and Uruk-hai, and Merry spits the clasp, and Aragorn and Gimli and Legolas find it, and they're going after him, and then that's when they meet up with the Riders of Rohan.
A point. We discussed this yesterday, and I was arguing about how Pippin, he dropped it off to one side,
So it wouldn't get stepped on.
so it wouldn't get. But there was another point to that I didn't think about. The other thing that made that a good thing for him to do is it left hobbit prints
Outside of that.
And that let Aragorn know that at least one of the hobbits was still alive.
So you were pissed off because he just threw it into the dirt.
Yeah.
It got stepped on while they kept moving, and it should have been like they camped. He snuck off. He threw it over.
Well,
and he
no,
went back.
they were at. And there's the reason he couldn't do it. In the movie, the hobbits were carried the whole way.
Right.
In the book, they were actually running.
Okay.
The orcs were making them run. And at that one point, Pippin just kind of darted off like he was making a break
This is
for
one
it.
of those eye-rolling moments for me where you start bitching and I go, "Here we go." So,
But yeah, the real plot point was that Pippin, by doing that, he left fresh hobbit footprints for Aragorn to see.
Okay.
And that gave Aragorn proof that at least one of them was still alive.
Okay.
They weren't chasing the orcs in vain.
Okay. All right. Fine. So, so they catch up. The riders of Rohan slaughter the orcs and the Uruk-hai. Don't realize that Merry and Pippin are there when they catch up with when Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas catch up with the riders. That's when they find out that they were all slaughtered, and then Aragorn figures out that hey, they went into the forest of was that Fangorn?
Yes.
Okay, so they go in the forest of Fangorn. Now this is when Merry and Pippin go into the forest of Fangorn and they meet up with the Ents. Let's talk about the Ents.
La 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 la. God, the Ents.
This is something that you and I, we may disagree on the whys, but we generally agree on the what happens.
Yeah.
So we're just going to go through the entire Ent story right here, and we'll bounce back to some of the other stuff in a minute. The Ents pick up Merry and Pippin. And he says, yes, the orcs, they come in here, they're burning stuff. He's well aware that they're burning stuff in Isengard. Oh, by the way, I want to bring this up. When they're watch Fellowship of the Ring, when they're tearing down the trees at Isengard.
Oh yeah.
They tear down one tree. They tear down the same tree as if it's a different tree, but it's the same exact one with multiple cameras. They tear it down. What, 8 times?
I don't know.
I didn't notice this. I never noticed this. So kudos to you, Peter Jackson, because I never noticed this, but you did. You were like,
actually, I can't take credit. I read it somewhere.
You read it somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the same damn tree that gets ripped down, and you know what? I'll put a clip right now and show you each one of those cuts.
The roots go deep.
Rip them all down.
It's the same damn tree. I had never, now I can't unsee it, so thank you for that. So they're ripping down all the trees. The Ents are well aware of this.
Yes.
And since the Ents are well aware of this, you go like, okay, why are they, okay, so he's like, yes, the orcs, we're going to have an Ent moot. We're going to get all the Ents together, we're going to meet. And then there's some comedy with Merry and Pippin in, this is I think in the extended version with them drinking the water and
Yeah.
oh, you're taller, and then they
Yeah.
fall in the roots, and then it's really bizarre. And then they go and have the Ent moot, and it takes them like, I don't know, 45 days to say hello to each other, and then another 30 days to say we're not going to do anything. Even though they know, they're like, well, it doesn't really affect us. It's like, you just told us earlier in the movie that it affected us. This is why it was manufactured
tension.
that didn't need to be there. And then Pippin tricks him into going, okay, let's go near Isengard the other way, because the closer we are to danger, the further we'll be from harm. We'll be the least. And even Treeberg goes, that doesn't make any sense, but all right. It's your Uber. So he goes and he takes them, and that's when he sees Isengard. Like, he's surprised.
Yeah.
And then he goes, all right, we're going to go do this. And he hits, and they all just walk out. Like, they were all just standing there at the edge. Hey, Bob, what? You think we need to go to this war? Well, it doesn't really affect us. Turn around. Jesus! What? Completely manufactured to stretch out an already 3 hour, the extended version is 3 hours and 45 fucking minutes. Do you have anything to add to this?
No.
I don't like it from a narrative standpoint.
I'll be honest.
So what happened in the books?
What happened in the books?
What happened in the books?
Well, for one thing, an orc did not chase Merry and Pippin into the woods. Okay.
All right.
All right.
That to me, that's Penny Ante, but
But well, it changes the tone. Okay. Once they make it into the woods, there's nobody chasing them. They have a chance to slow down, take a deep breath, dangle their feet in the water, the little river there, and just kind of.
they're on a nature hike.
Yeah, on a nature hike, and it's really dark and gloomy.
Sure.
And they notice there's a hill over here that's above the trees.
Right.
So they go to that and they climb that hill, and they get to the top and they can kind of see around, and the sun's shining, and I forget if it was Merry or Pippin, but one of them like, yeah, the forest really looks nice from up here. I could quite like the place. And then you hear this deep voice behind them, like the forest? How kind of you.
Oh, hey, dude.
And that's when they meet Fangorn.
Okay.
And Fangorn isn't, holding them in each hand, trying to squeeze them to death. He's just, it's a good thing I heard your voices before I saw you, because if I had seen you first, I would have taken you for a couple of orcs and just trodden on you.
Right.
But, so they start off in a much more amicable fashion.
Amicable.
Amicable, thank
Okay.
you. You know my pronunciation.
I understand. For the audience.
Much more amicable.
I'm in Fuloydo translation mode. Don't worry. I got you.
So, anyway, he asked them who they are, and they kind of introduced themselves, and yes, we're hobbits, and that they have that conversation. They tell him about Gandalf, and he's kind of really, and it's kind of hinted at that he knows something that they don't.
That Gandalf is
That
alive.
Gandalf is back. And they back and forth. He takes them to his home, gives them something to drink. Ents don't eat; they only drink.
I guess they kind of had that in although that was the comedy section.
And they did actually grow.
Did they?
Yes,
Okay.
but it wasn't portrayed like that. It's basically the next time they get back with Frodo and Sam and everybody, it's like, damn, what happened to you? Why am I getting a crick in my neck?
Yeah.
So anyway, but they fill him in on what's going on in the wide world. I mean, Fangorn knows absolutely what's going on within the forest, but he's not so well informed of things beyond his realm, if you will. So they're filling him in on all of that. They go to the Ent Moot. The Ents, I think it lasted 3 days. I'm not sure, but whatever-ish. The Ent Moot ends. They've decided they're going to war.
I admit I would have liked that better. It's the one thing I think you and I agree on. And I'm not against the
narratively,
changes.
it makes sense.
Narratively, it makes sense because he knew, but it was very sloppy in Two Tower.
Oh God, sloppy.
And that was just sloppy from, I don't care, changing from the book, fine, but you better make it a lot less sloppy than what you did. And when he established that he knows, and then he doesn't want to do anything about it until he sees it, the thing that he already knows. And then he makes a quick, and they all just walk out.
Yeah, they all just
turned around like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah, that was so bad.
Yeah, I was not impressed with that.
I was glad I was drunk by the time we got to that.
You were an angry drunk, let me tell you.
I had a right to be angry.
You didn't have to hit me.
Shut up, you like it and you know it.
So, I'm just gonna glide right on past it. So okay, so that's the basic story of the Ents, and let's take it a couple of steps back, and we'll talk about Gimli, Aragorn, and Legolas figure out. Aragorn does his tracking thing, which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
And
it always blows my mind that there really are people that can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's looking into the tracks like a hobbit lay here. He's behind on his taxes, you know.
Yeah.
It was really impressive. So they go into Fangorn Forest, and that's when they meet up with Gandalf.
Gandalf the White.
Right.
And in the book, they meet Gandalf on the same hilltop where Merry and Pippin met Fangorn, because they had been following the.
There is one odd continuity mistake. That was the first time I noticed it, but they find him. He's in his white robes, and then he puts on one of his elven cloak with the leaf clasp.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Well, you say there's a big explanation of that the book. There's Zippo explanation of that and the reason he has that on is later on he could throw it off. And they can play the music. Ah, I am Gandalf the Superman. That was the only reason he had that gray cloak on, but it was weird. It's one of those things that you just kind of like, oh, he's wearing a cloak. He must have had it with him, I guess. But
in the book, they kind of described it as when he put the cloak on, it was like a cloud going over the sun.
Yeah.
Just the light. It just kind of dimmed. It was very poetic.
Yeah, but they don't. But he went to Lothlorien, got a new set of clothes, haircut, and some breakfast, some coffee, and
Eagle Express Airlines.
Yeah.
Picked him up off the mountaintop and dropped him off in Lothlorien.
Eagle Ek Machina.
Eagle Ek Machina.
And so then they go to Rohan.
They go to Rohan.
Specifically, they go to Edoras.
Right.
And in Edoras,
this is a difference between book and movie. In the book, they had specifically promised Éomer that they would return the horses.
Oh, right. So Éomer gives them some horses. He says, because the guys that had them had died.
And also in the book, at the point we're at now, Gandalf basically goes, the hobbits are safe or beyond your next path is by your given word. We need to go to Edoras.
Okay.
But,
all right, so that's fine. I don't. They were going to go there anyway. I mean, I don't whether they gifted them or they had to return them. I don't think it makes that much of a difference.
Yeah, it doesn't really, but
difference between book and movie, but fine. They get to Edoras. By the way, Edoras is beautiful set.
Yes, gorgeous.
Plot
point here. This is where
they're going to free Theoden.
And this is one of the first places where you really notice that Aragorn's not carrying Anduril. And he should be.
Because
where the door warden tells them to leave their weapons outside, in the book, Aragorn's carrying Anduril, and he doesn't want to put it down.
Oh, yeah. I don't blame him.
He's like, and he finally does with basically the threat that if anyone draws Isildur's sword other than Isildur's hair, they're going to die.
Fair enough. So important safety tip there, Egon.
Yeah.
Don't draw the sword.
And in the movie, he's like, yeah, it's just a sword. Okay, here.
And as they're coming up to Edoras, Éowyn
is up on the
roof, and the flag blows off. It rips off the flagpole. It blows down. That apparently was a unscripted moment.
Yeah, and I did not know that until you told me yesterday.
People, you could check me on this, but I have heard or I've read that was a completely unscripted moment and just one of those serendipitous things that they kept in, and I don't blame them. Because
that was freaking awesome.
Yeah, that was great. So
they couldn't have done it better if they had had a team of special effects guys working on it for a month.
No. Well, if you want to talk about the blessed by God for this production, that's got to be it right there. So they do this. They get to Edoras, they go inside, and they free Theoden. Now, in the book, it isn't like Theoden is possessed by Saruman.
Right.
It isn't Avatar.
Yeah. It's basically his mind has been poisoned by Wormtongue.
Right.
Basically, Wormtongue whispering in his ear, telling him how bad everything is, and he just basically has the world's worst case of depression.
But his body isn't torn up.
No.
I actually like it in the movie better. I think it's a little bit more defined.
He looks like an old man who feels old.
Yeah.
Versus an old man who feels vital. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, and I think they represented that visually pretty neat. And I gotta say, I love.
He looks like a freaking zombie.
He does. Yeah. Okay. Maybe they went a little far with it.
Yeah,
But I gotta admit, I do love the transition back.
I agree with what they were trying to do, but as I've said about many things in this movie series, it went a little too far.
Yeah, well, again, we get back to Peter Jackson and excess, right?
Yeah.
Which, that's what we found out in Hobbit.
Oh,
But
God, the Hobbit. Don't quit saying that word.
Hobbit.
Have flashbacks, man.
The special effects transition, I adore that one.
That was good.
It was really good.
Well, a special effects transition that we haven't mentioned that we talked about quite a bit yesterday, when Frodo puts on the ring. How he
it's not
it's not instantaneous.
It's not instantaneous. It's almost like he fades out in different circles. I haven't done a freeze frame on it, but it's like something runs over him and he fades out from.
It's like a wipe that goes from the outside to the inside.
Well, I looked at it again on his next one, and it was like this part fades away, and then this part fades away separately,
But yeah,
it's
not instantaneous. There is a definite transition there.
Yeah.
And same when he takes the ring off, when he doesn't just blink into existence.
I like it a lot.
That was a transition that we discussed yesterday.
Yeah, it's a good looking effect. It's a simple effect that works.
Yeah, simple. I couldn't do it.
I probably could.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think anybody could do that effect with a little bit of. Yeah, you could do that with a reasonably good editor. It's not a difficult.
Something like Adobe After Effects.
No, I think I could do it with my. Now everybody's gonna say, "Do it, asshole,
do it,
big mouth."
You said you could do it. Do it,
fucker. I think it can be done fairly easily. I've seen people with home stuff do stuff. That is that relatively simple effect relative to a lot of the other shit that's going on in this movie. Very simple effect, but a very effective one.
I'd be curious to know how they did it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a bunch of different wipes on different areas of his body.
I don't think they mentioned it in that behind the scenes book. That was mostly about scenery and.
Yeah, I mean, even in the back, and they've got guys. If you ever get the extended editions or even on the Blu-ray, the documentaries on this are longer than the movies. I mean, it's a good season of TV. There's got to be 20, 30 hours worth of.
I haven't watched it all.
I've watched most of it, but it's been a long time. So, okay, so we like the Theoden effect.
Yeah.
Theoden comes back. He tosses out Wormtongue. That was another thing we noticed, and this is one of the examples, but there's a lot of examples of people falling down concrete steps, getting up. They're fine.
Just a scratch.
It's just a flesh wound.
Do we want to talk about Aylmer here?
Okay, so Faramir was in Edoras. He was in the throne room when Theoden was rescued, so to speak. What
in the movie?
In the movie, what's the problem?
In the book, he was in jail.
In the book, he was in jail.
He was imprisoned because, if you recall, in the movie, Wormtongue had him expelled.
I guess you could say exiled.
What happened in the book was...
It's not really clear.
Wormtongue had arranged for him to be ordered not to patrol the North Downs, which is where the orcs were. And he went against orders and was up that way, caught the orcs, killed the orcs,
Are these the same orcs with Merry and Pippin?
Yes,
or different
yes.
Set? The same orcs.
Yeah, if he had followed orders, Merry and Pippin would be in Isengard.
Okay.
He rescued Merry and Pippin by disobeying orders. Since he disobeyed orders,
which he did in the movie as well, but there's no, you don't really hear about him disobeying orders or anything.
So in the book, he disobeyed orders. He comes back. Wormtongue arranges to have him imprisoned because he disobeyed Theoden's orders. Gandalf and company show up. They heal Theoden. Gandalf convinces him that, hey, maybe you shouldn't listen to Wormtongue and maybe you should listen to your nephew instead. and he orders him to be released from prison. And about shortly after that is when Gandalf says the line that, your hand would feel its old strength better if it held a sword.
Right.
And it's at that moment that Éomer appears, having been freshly released from the dungeon, and he says, "Here, sword, take mine." And it's a really cool moment in the book, because up to this point, everybody's thinking of Theoden as a frail old man.
Right.
And Theoden's standing tall and proud. How comes this? The way they spoke. Basically, why has he got a sword? He was in prison. And the guy that had released him, well, he asked for his sword, and since you were letting him out of prison, I figured it was okay.
Well, now you go to prison, fucker.
And then Gandalf's like, will you not take the sword? And
so he seemed to remember what he had done, but he was completely out of control.
Pretty much.
In the movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
In the book, it was more. Well, he was still. I guess. I mean, he was still being controlled.
It was
more subtle, is what you're saying.
It was less magical.
Less magic.
And more psychological, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
In the movie, Saruman flat out has possessed him.
Yeah.
In the books, like I said before, Wormtongue's whispering in his ear, telling him how bad things are, and how he can't trust anybody. Like I said, he just has the world's worst case of depression.
I felt like he was not directly in control. I felt Saruman. It was kind of like setting him on autopilot, and then once in a while taking him to manual control. That's what happened. Like he was. Oh yeah, you need to go. And every time Grima would worry, while Saruman's doing his own thing, like sending Gandalf up to the roof or whatever. But at that moment when Gandalf came in, that's when Saruman took manual control of Theoden. And
that was just weird.
And that's when it was, possession or something. I don't know. I don't know. I like it fine.
I watching that scene, I just wanted to see Gandalf, throw his staff in the air, and by the power of the Valar compels
the power
me.
of Christ compels you. I need a young priest and an old priest. Get them in here now.
That was just bad. I didn't like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I disagree. Again, I think this is where you go from visual storytelling versus you can explain it more in the book.
Well, the thing is, they don't really explain anything in the book either. I'm just going by what the effects appear to be.
Yeah. Well, if they don't explain it in the book, then I don't think that this is necessarily wrong. It's just a little bit excess. I will give you the excess. I'll give you the excess, but I don't think that the magic and the nature of it is necessarily that off. All right, so moving on. So they begin. All right, so at this point, Frodo and Sam are moving along, and they go through the marshes. Frodo,
they're going through the Dead Marsh.
The Dead Marsh. Frodo decides to take a little dip with the corpses.
Yeah.
And Gollum rescues him.
And man, that was a deep ass pool he fell into.
Yeah, it didn't look that deep. But...
No, I mean in the movie you're looking. It's like Jesus Christ, how deep is that pool?
I know.
He's
I don't know what. The marshes I find just to be kind of boring.
And they are.
That's where you get into the Clerks 2 stuff, where 3 movies just about walking, nothing but fucking walking. So I kind of understand what they're talking about there. That part to me is the walking, and they do get into some character moments, I think, with Gollum, and that's where he says, "That's your name, Smeagol," and all that.
I honestly, as a huge fan of Tolkien, the most boring part of the books to me are the parts that deal with Frodo and Sam and Gollum before they get to Schlob's lair.
Yeah, I kind of agree, and I think that is in the movie as well. I think they do their best, and there are some good moments.
Yeah, there are some good moments.
I like when he gets him to remember his name.
Yeah.
Later on, let's see, they have to duck from the Nazgul
Yeah.
and the fell beast that's running on, and then I think after that is when they are the potato scene,
Yeah.
and they see the Oliphants and all that. I don't mind that campfire scene too much. It's all right.
I've been camping. My campfires never look like that.
Every campfire. So this guy has tried to make campfires. They've gone badly.
No, they just don't look that pretty. Of course, my campfires are usually about the size of that rug, and yes, I'm a pirate.
Which is much alcohol is soaked into your system. I think you should stay away from campfires. But the campfires, yeah, we noticed that every campfire is absolutely 100% perfect.
I swear to God, they were propane. They probably were propane.
They probably were,
to be honest.
Well, you can't do a real. I mean, you got to take 50 takes.
Yeah,
it's got to look the same.
So it's
gas.
I'm sure
I
they
don't
had
care.
gas. It was the Hank Hill of camping.
That's when you were getting a little bit cranky. So
I wasn't over the Ents yet.
you weren't over the end. We hadn't even gotten to the Ents yet at that point. So then they get captured by Faramir.
Yeah, and you know my feelings on this scene.
So let's discuss that. So your biggest, so I believe the big thing that I've heard with the Faramir problem is that Faramir, they believe, is tempted by the ring in the movie when he was not tempted by the ring.
I didn't say that. I said that he was not as honorable in the movie as he was in the book.
I disagreed with that. Now, the reason why you say he was not honorable is because in the book he swears at the very beginning when he meets him that he would not. Well, you tell me.
I can't remember the exact wording.
Okay, but he
basically,
swears he would not take the ring. When did that happen? When he first met him?
Oh, it was shortly after he took them prisoner. They were back in the
pool,
in the cavern.
Right.
It's like when they first got to the cavern, and
but he doesn't make that oath in the movie.
Well, it's not even that so much as that the personality is different.
So the person
book Faramir was portrayed as a much more.
He was a little more stalwart.
He was much more noble.
See, and I didn't see him having a lack of nobility. And in fact, when he takes them prisoner, but for one, it's not because he wants to. He doesn't care about the ring. I don't feel like there was a lot, and I remember this happening back in the day, and not just with you. A lot of people are saying Faramir shouldn't have been tempted by the ring. I never felt he was tempted by the ring. I felt he was tempted by the idea of getting his father's favor, which was a thing definitely in the books. We both agree on that. That his father treated him like garbage.
His father treated him like garbage.
So he does that. But then when he gets to Osgiliath, when he takes the hobbits to Osgiliath and then he frees them, the guy says, if you do this, you know the rules of our country, your life is forfeit. And he says, okay, then it's forfeit. I'm not taking this ring. I get it now. So to me, he knows he's going to die now. Probably.
I don't like the fact that they went to Osgiliath in the first place.
If you're talking about geography, we can argue about that. But to me, that's nitpicking. If you're talking about is the character less noble, I disagree because he makes that statement. It just takes him a little longer to get there.
Well, and this is something else.
Some of that is building tension.
It's putting stuff in the movie that was never there. You know, it's adding to the story for the sake of adding to the story. It's one of those.
Yeah.
It didn't add anything to the narrative as far as I was concerned. You know, your mileage may vary.
I mean, in the end, they end up at the same place as far as where Faramir is. I just think that it's one thing to say I wouldn't do it. It's another thing to say I'm going to do the right thing even though my life is forfeit. I find that a little bit more compelling. Now, if we want to talk about Frodo going up to the top, facing off with the Nazgul,
which was
falling
just
off,
stupid, and
then the Nazgul just flying away, it's a little bizarre. Don't know why he didn't come back. It's not what they did with Faramir that bothers me. I think we're both agreed that set up some stupidity in Osgiliath that didn't need to happen.
Yeah. It said the hobbits should never have been anywhere near.
They could have done the same thing, where he says, "I'm going to take him to Osgiliath," and then not take him to Osgiliath, and ended up, and then say, "My life is forfeit."
Everything that happened could have happened in that cavern. Yeah.
Yeah, it could have happened in the cave. One thing I did like. Now this is, and we didn't talk about this very much. And let's go. So you and I are disagreed on Faramir. You think he's less noble. I think he's just as noble, but that they come at it in a different direction.
Less likable. How about that?
I didn't find him unlikable at all. In some ways, I found him more likable than Boromir. And Boromir became likable at the end, kind of had a redemption.
That, again, we've agreed that movie Boromir was a much more well-rounded character than book Boromir is very two-dimensional. True. He gets no character development at all, really. He's basically there to try to take the ring and.
Well, they also throw in that scene with flashback scene in Two Towers with him and Faramir and Denethor when they first retook Osgiliath, and they kind of showed the bond between the brothers. Right. I like it, but.
Yeah, the brothers loved one another.
Yeah, they do, and I like the scene as it kind of sets up more of the Faramir-Denethor relationship later on in Return of the King. But as far as for Boromir's character, I mean, it's nice, but he's already dead, so it doesn't really. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you do there. I don't have a problem with it necessarily. Just anything.
Oh, excuse me.
But if the point is to show the Denethor, Boromir, Faramir relationship, the triangle, that it does its job. The thing I did like is, and that we haven't really talked about, is the Smeagol split personality scenes.
Oh yeah, those are great.
So you start out with the one in the Two Towers where they kind of do this, and then they do the split, the back and forth split screen.
I love the one where he's talking to his reflection in the water.
Yeah, that's in Return of the King later on.
That was Return of the King. That was the one that really, that was good.
I think it's a little underrated for whatever reason. Maybe because his back is to you the whole time. But after he's been beat up in the cavern, and Gollum starts to reassert itself, and he starts, just with body language, you can tell which one's Gollum, which one's Smeagol, and Smeagol's crying, and they're talking to each other. That's all Andy Serkis.
Yeah, that was a very effective scene.
Yeah, so kudos to you, Andy. You did a great job with the whole split personality. That's right up there with Willem Dafoe in Spider-Man, talking to himself in the mirror.
Oh, that was an awesome scene too.
Hang on
for a second. Okay.
Probably hearing my fan or my.
Well, it sounded like a cat.
Yeah, screw the cats.
But no thanks. I tried that once. The scratches were awful.
And so demonetized. Okay, at this point, then
we're getting to that stage in the three movies that the diversion from the book
is getting a bit much.
It's getting more and more. Our arguments get.
Yeah, I am not unhappy with how Faramir turned out as a character. You are. I agree.
I'm not unhappy with how he turned out as a character. By the time we get to the third movie, with the scenes that he's in, he's fine there. I just don't like the initial meeting.
Okay, so we'll agree to disagree on that one. I do agree that in making the changes and getting to Osgiliath, you end up with kind of some stupidity there. So then we get to...
I'm going to say this. That's my biggest problem with the movies as a whole, is when Peter Jackson and who was his wife or partner that co-wrote with him, when they would make changes...
Walsh or Philippa.
Yeah, when they would make changes just for the sake of making a change.
Yeah, and that's irritating. That's always irritating when you got to deal with that. So
I can understand leaving something out that's superfluous to the story to make the script tighter. I can understand adding something in if you need it because, it's a visual medium versus a written medium, then you need to add this visual thing to get the point across. I can even understand changing a detail because it just doesn't work on screen.
Well, let's talk time compression then. because
Yeah.
that was a thing you had a big. Well, we talked a little bit about that, but
We
that was a
did.
big thing. I mean, I for the sake of pacing in a visual medium, as long as you're getting the point across, I don't really care that not
I
as
just,
much or
I
too
just,
much time is
I
spent.
just, I don't think they needed to take a whole lot of time. You know, if you'll forgive the non sequitur, I didn't think they needed to take a whole lot of screen time
Yeah.
to establish it, but I still think they should have established it.
Agreed. I think where my issue comes in is that
I mean, they didn't have to spend an hour to get the point across that Frodo is now 50 years old.
no, they didn't.
But they could have taken two or three 5 minutes to
Well, right. Well, I
maybe
mean,
show
when you're-
maybe show a montage. You know, years passing. I don't know.
Well, when
I'm-
you're taking time to film the comedy of Merry and Pippin drinking the water and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, I mean,
They-
then you go, well, why didn't you do this? And get the important shit out of the way first.
Get the important stuff out of the way first.
It is what it is.
But I feel it was important. I'm going to give you that it's not so important that Merry and Pippin were so much younger than Frodo. But I do think it was important to establish that Frodo was of mature years. He was 50 years old. He wasn't.
Yeah, they could have mentioned something, I suppose. I don't know. I think that he came across mature enough. He certainly came across at a different level than the other three hobbits. But I think your
Yeah.
problem is that Elijah Wood just looks too young to you.
That's probably part of it.
Let's get over to so now everybody's packing up from Edoras.
Yeah.
And they're heading towards
Helm's Deep.
So
And that's a major difference.
it's a major difference in the book. I like the moments that they added with Eowyn. Now here's good comedy. Eowyn makes the soup.
Yeah. Apparently
And
the
it's-
woman can't cook.
And it's awful.
It's
Yeah.
awful.
And he tries to, and at one point he tries to dump it, and she turns around, and he can't dump it. He spills it on his leg. He's burning his balls off. But he also mentions that he's 90 there.
Yeah.
So that's a nice moment there. I think that gives us a little bit of a little bit more about Aragorn. But then he's dreaming. He's talking to Arwen, and that's I don't know. I just get a little bored in that. Then they have the warg fight, and boy, those wargs, they don't hold up. I mean, the wargs themselves look okay, but the way they're superimposed,
Yeah.
it's not good. And then they have that really, it probably looked cool at the time, but that really bizarre moment where Legolas gets on the horse by flipping up underneath its
Oh,
head,
yeah.
and then turning around and doing a half gainer, and it's all CG Legolas to do it. I'm like, okay.
We get it. He's athletic.
It's fucking amazing. Fine. But the warg fight, I guess you need that, because if you don't do that, there's very little that happens between.
Essentially
There's no action beats until you get to Helm's Deep.
Essentially what they're doing with that warg fight is they're taking some stuff that did happen off page in the book to other people,
Okay.
and they're bringing it into the focus of the main characters so they can show it. Because the wargs were raiding Rohan.
Yeah, and they did show a little bit of that at the beginning.
Yeah.
Where everybody was, fleeing back to Edoras to get safe. So I get that, and I get that you needed an action beat. I don't know. I guess I don't have too many problems with it, but it's not like I go, ooh, this is so
one.
cool.
There's one problem with it.
Yes. So fake out deaths.
Huh?
Fake out death.
Fake out death.
The Aragorn fake out death is absolutely silly and boring.
I mean, like even somebody who knows nothing about the plot, has never read the books, knows nothing. Hey, they killed Aragorn, but the next movie is called The Return of the King.
Yeah. We get it. Yeah, you're not fooling anybody.
You're not fooling anybody.
And they did enough. I mean, it was like Frodo with the fake out death in Balin's tomb.
Yeah.
Like he got skewered. It's like, oh no, he's dead. We're halfway through this first movie, and there's 2 more movies. He's not fucking dead. So yeah, I think they relied on a little too many fake out deaths.
And quite frankly, when they went and looked over that cliff that he went over, yeah, he died.
Well, that's what got us into the argument about whether or not Gandalf was a fake out death. Because you're like, well, he died. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really splitting hairs.
You are really.
I was just being an asshole.
You're like, well, he actually died. I'm like, fuck you.
But he did. He did die. He just, came back to life.
I reiterate my fuck you. So, yeah, fake out death of Aragorn is, I don't like it.
Yeah, that was bad.
So then we get to the Battle of Helm's Deep, and
which was well done for the most part.
Yes, so we got the Battle of Helm's Deep going on. At the same time, there's really not much going on with. We've talked mostly, I think, about Frodo and Sam at this point, and they're just getting dragged to Gilead, and then they leave again.
Yeah.
There's not much going on with them. So it's really about Merry and Pippin with the Ents and the Battle of Isengard. Now once they come out and decide to do Battle of Isengard, you're pretty cool with that.
Yeah, I'm pretty cool with that. That actually was fairly consistent with the book version of the battle.
And it's a lot of fun to watch.
It's a lot of fun to watch. Did you catch the little bit of humor they threw in? The Ent that was on fire, and the flood comes down.
He douses himself.
Dunks his head in water.
What would you do?
Well, sadly, in the book, that Ent died.
Ent died. Don't worry, kids. He's okay. No trees were harmed in the making of this film. The thing I found from an effects and production standpoint, the thing I really liked was that's a big giant model.
Yeah.
But and if you've ever watched Superman the movie,
it's been a while, but yeah.
You remember when the dam breaks in Superman the movie? And he throws gravel to block the water coming through.
Okay.
Okay. The water coming through that dam really pulls the mask off of it being a miniature. Because water is a kind of a hard thing.
It's really hard to film water in miniature and make it look real.
It really makes,
I mean, it's real water. It's just not acting right for the scale that you're trying to.
It's hard to scale down water. I don't know what they added to the water.
They had to put
some
something
sort of
in it.
Chemical or something to give it a very foamy white. Whatever they did, it keeps the scale. Now there are a couple of times where it looks a little modelly.
It may have been CGI. I'm not saying the water was CGI, but
from what I understand, all of it was models and stuff, and they filmed it in slow. Now there was some CGI enhancement, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Especially like when you have orcs running around on top of the thing. But as far as scaling the water, I don't know how they did it. And again, if you guys I haven't looked into it, but it looks really, really good.
Yeah, it was well done. Like I said, water is hard.
Water is hard. And
water does not scale easily.
It doesn't, and they did a really good job with that. And
usually, when you're trying to scale water, you do it by fiddling with the frame rate.
Yeah, it just slow-mo the water, but that doesn't. It just looks like slow motion, regular size water. It doesn't look like millions of gallons like this.
Yeah, it's hard.
So kudos on that. So then we get to the Battle of Helm's Deep. I think from a visual and storytelling standpoint,
there were no elves at Helm's Deep.
Okay. and as we discussed, by the end of it,
there were no
elves at Helm's Deep because they were all slaughtered. That moment where they bring in that guy that you saw for 2 minutes over in that guy, that elf guy,
and then they spent 5 minutes in a death scene.
They
for him.
spent 5 minutes of that guy who I still can't remember his name.
I have no idea. I don't remember his name either. I think his name was said once.
It was, and he was just a snot.
And he was a snot.
He was a concierge at Lothlorien, and then he has this huge death scene, and he's like, I don't care. I guess well, he wasn't supposed to be there in the first place, and none of the elves were. I don't know. You're right. From a narrative standpoint, it's pointless. The battle itself.
I think they did it just so they could have some archers.
I guess, but they had some anyway.
Not very many. In the book version, the humans were very short on archers.
On archers.
Yeah.
But it...
Or at least at the Battle of Helm's Deep, put it that way.
Right.
Because, I mean, I think it was said a couple of times, I wish we had some more archers. And actually, I think Legolas said that, I wish I had, a bunch of elven
Peter
archers.
Jackson was giving him wishes.
I guess, yeah. That's pretty much it.
Okay, it's fine. It doesn't really...
It did not affect the movie in any way other than to give us a gratuitous 5-minute death scene of an elf that
we don't care about.
we don't care about.
So, okay, you got that piece. And then you've got... okay, so you got the thing blows up, the wall blows up.
Oh, we forgot the gratuitous humor of Gimli the Dwarf.
Oh, yeah, that's only in the extended edition.
Is that only in the extended
It's
edition?
only extended when he puts on the
human size armor.
chainmail.
Chainmail.
Even though he's been pretty much armored up this whole time.
Yeah, he's a freaking dwarf. Dwarves have the best armor.
Comedy.
I mean, there is nothing in Rohan's armory that could even come close to the quality of the armor that Gimli is already wearing.
Yeah, it doesn't last long. It's a 5-second moment.
Yeah, but it's just like I said, gratuitous
humor. Yeah,
wasted screen time.
But that's
I would much rather they'd shown us him getting that shield that he did get in the book.
Yeah, that would have been nice. And then of course it's that kind of stuff that leads you to jackrabbit sleds and the hobbits and things like that.
The Hobbit.
So Pete, dial it back. So we've got that going. We've got.
Other than that, I thought the Battle of Helm's Deep was quite well done.
Yeah, you said there's a few nitpicky details.
Yeah, a few nitpicky.
They got
details.
in where they didn't get in the real.
That's later.
Well, didn't you say they didn't get into the gates of Helm's Deep? They got into the wall.
They broke the wall, and a few got through that break in the wall after they blew it up, and then they pushed them out and they patched it up as best they could. And Gimli has a line where, "Hey, Master Dwarf, we understand your folk are good with rock," and he's like, "Well, we don't shape stone with a battle axe, but I'll do what I can."
Now, I do want to mention though that. For some reason, I think it was Gimli, it might have been Legolas or Aragorn, but I think it was Gimli, when he jumps on the orcs, when all their pikes are straight up in the air.
Oh, yeah.
Like, why? What?
Yeah, that's just asking for a skewering.
Yeah.
And yet, when that happened yesterday, we had quite a discourse on the use of pikes in
Yes, we did.
warfare.
We're not going to do that.
We're not going to do that.
But, yeah, that was a little bizarre. So there's little moments where you kind of scratch your head. It's like, I wouldn't do that, But overall, yes, I love the Battle of Helm's Deep. I think it's great, well done. What about? So he says, when you see the light on the 5th day, look for me. Gandalf shows up with all the riders of Rohan. Again, they all ride right into those spikes.
Right into those pikes.
But apparently it's not a problem because you're on the good side now.
Yeah.
I think they kind of like, the sun came up and got in their eyes and they went like this. I'm like, really? Would they do that? Okay.
Well, I watching that scene, not all of the pikes went up. There were some still pointed at the horsey things, and the horsey things just right into them.
They're very tough horses.
Very tough horses.
So,
Agile.
but in the book, is that generally what happened?
Generally, yes.
Okay. So I'll give them a pass. It's visual. It's cool looking. You're cheering at that point. Who cares?
What they depicted as happening did happen in the books, but I imagine the people in the books were probably a little more professional about how they...
Yeah. So then you've got...
The execution of the visuals, again, mostly about the pikes. That's what pikes are for. You don't...
So then they go into... So then the orcs go running into Fangorn.
And I'm going to pick a little nitpick here. It's not a big one. In the book, when the orcs are routed and they're running from the humans, and they turn around and there's this forest that wasn't there before. Okay.
Well, that's kind of what happened in the movie, but
yeah,
it's not.
Yeah, here's the thing. In the book, the orcs were like, holy shit, and they're turning back and forth. They didn't want to go into the trees. In the movie, they didn't even slow down.
Yeah.
They just, I mean, the end result was the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Raptors.
Yeah, raptors.
That's what it looks like. I mean, that's what I got that scene from Jurassic Park. They all run in, and then you just hear a lot of crunching and screaming, and all the trees start moving like this. And I'm thinking, raptors. And I would take away all my criticism if some raptors came running out of that forest.
But yeah,
Fucking
the end result was identical from book to movie, so it's a very small nitpick.
Okay.
But the nitpick is there, because in the book they made it a point that the orcs were afraid. They did not want to go into those trees, and the only reason they did was because there were men with pointy things getting ready to give them enemas.
And then in the extended version, we have Merry and Pippin go in and they find some weed and a bunch of food. And we look and we just see a lot of smoke coming out of a doorway, giggling, and they have the munchies. We get it!
I will say,
junkies!
that particular chapter in the books, the title of the chapter is Flotsam and Jetsam, is one of my favorite parts of the entire
I'll tell you,
story.
Pete was really leaning into the
Oh,
whole,
man.
Hobbits are
They were getting into Scooby and Shaggy territory there.
they're giggling. You ever really look at your hand, you know? So that was I don't know. I guess it was fine. I don't think you had a problem with
I
it.
didn't have a problem with
All
it.
right.
I still think the book version of that chapter was better, but yeah, it was okay.
There are no helps. Okay, so this is when we stopped taking notes because we gave up and we're heading into Return of the King. now.
Understand this. That page of notes he's reading from are notes that I made retroactively when we were taking that break between Two Towers and Return of the King, because the notes you had been taking on your phone mysteriously disappeared.
This is a tissue of lies.